Is it ever frustrating for you in a way? And that's probably a poor choice of words. When you're on the Hollywood Babylon podcast with, or no, sorry, let me say that. When you're on the Fat Man Beyond
Mm,
podcast with the very shy, quiet Kevin Smith,
mm.
and you guys are reviewing the latest TV show film, you generally have a take on it that, and I'm not just saying it because we're on the air. That when you review like fuck, I don't know, Blade 2,
Mm.
and you go, oh fuck, that's actually a great idea if they'd have gone his way. So is it ever frustrating for you though when you're like part of a writing team or you pitch a project to a studio and they say no, and it comes out and it's like, well, we had this really dark take on I don't know, Fantastic Four or three, but instead we went for a musical version and they're all rappers and they're all jazz and they surf and all this shit. So is it ever frustrating for you when you go, but I said so?
um, frustrating is a little harsh for what it is, because I mean, frustration is, it's when you're like in the writer's room and you're like, hey, we should do A, and we deliberate over it, and then somebody makes the decision to do B, and then it comes out and the audience is like, you know what, they really should have done A. It's a little frustrating when you were actually, in the room where it happens, and you had the capacity to, and you said the thing you wanted to say, and it just fell on deaf ears. That can be frustrating. It's less frustrating when I'm, pitching a movie or pitching a TV show, or in a way that I have no authority or no real, you know, agency in how to affect the outcome. Then it's just like a little sad. It's like, oh, guys, you didn't need to do that. I told you how to do it, and you didn't do it. And then there's sometimes where I'll tell them my pitch, and they'll do something else, and something else comes out better. And I'm like, oh, well, best idea wins. Best idea should always win. Um, and some of that is just having a healthy ego that can withstand a certain amount of full frontal assaults. Like, oh, I took a hit on that one. Okay, well, no, let's keep on pitching. Let's come up with a new idea. But yeah, it's a little it takes some discipline to not say I told you so.
Well, one of the things I love when you do is when you sort of talk about how you would reboot or make a sequel to a shit film. Like, for example, I remember when the 2015 Fantastic Four came out, which was
Mm,
shit, and there's
mm,
no denying it. It's shit. That could cause world peace. The level of shit that film was.
mm,
I remember you had a reboot pitch, and it was like you could cast Denzel Washington as Reed Richards, and it would be like sort of a not a family take, but it would be sort of a more lighthearted spin. And I thought, yes, but if you were to do, if they said to you, Mark, we want you to reboot and be in charge of the new Blade reboot, because
mm.
before we had three films that were like quite horrors, dark, violent, gory. How would you, with choice, reboot it?
I mean, not that Marvel is going to give me any money at all to make Blade, because my guess is they've got it well in hand. Um, but I think that given that it's Marvel and they've yet to make a rated R movie, it can't quite be horror, not on the level that I think horror fans might want it to be. So it's got to be a little less about the viscera of vampires. It's got to be a little less about, we're hunting and there's blood everywhere and whatever, because you got to be able to take kids to see this. Um, but I think that there's a lot to say right now. I think the vampire as a mode of storytelling is always somewhat reflective of the times that you're in, right? Like Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, in the sort of in the wake of the plague, right? Well, the plague was still within living memory, and that idea of some kind of virus or some kind of pathogen that was laying waste to lots of people. Like, all right, what if it's a person? What if a person is that pathogen? And then you spend a lot of time, in the 80s and Rice and vampirism becomes a sort of Mode to tell stories about HIV and AIDS and the communicable diseases of blood, and then it also gets to be a story about women and feminism and blood being the vehicle, and virgins very often being the most desired thing. Like it becomes a little bit like an easy putty, a silly putty for letting you tell the stories you want to tell depending on the time that you're in. And so I think right now there's a way to tell a story about what it means for Blade to be ultimately biracial. He's half human and half vampire, and he's unique among all of them because he can walk during the day, and what it means to not feel like you're a part of either world, but instead actually have the best of both worlds. And for a very large part of this population that's growing every day of not knowing precisely where they think they fit in, whether that be people who are biracial, whether that be people who are trans and transitioning and have gender fluidity issues and all that stuff, like what it means to find your own place, feels like a really good metaphor to explore through a movie like Blade.
Are you happy with the casting of Mahershala Ali? I
Yeah.
don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry.
Mahershala, yeah.
Oh,
No, he's great. I mean, the dude's got, he seems to be collecting Oscars like they're toys at the bottom of a cereal box. He's fantastic, and I think I think so much of his work has been very serious, but I think he has got a twinkle in his eye and can have some fun with something like Blade. And I don't think a guy like that signs on because we're just going to pay you a lot of money. I think he signs on because he's going to get a kick out of it.
yeah.
And that's kind of what you want. You want somebody to have a really good time playing Blade. The same way Wesley Snipes had a good time playing Blade. Yeah.
I am really looking forward to it, but for me personally, if I could have cast Blade, I'd have gone with I think his name is it John David Washington,
Oh, yeah, Denzel's son.
and I'd have cast Denzel as Whistler,
That's fun.
and I'd have sort of gone. I would have ripped off Fury Road, and I'd have done that with vampires, and instead of during the day, it's at night, and Blade is trying to save, as you say, these virgin kids who are going to be fed and turned. But I never thought we'd be talking about eating virgins together. This is going fantastic.
Hey, you never can tell where you're going to end up.